Before we move ahead, I want to pass on to my co-host, Shubh, if you can take the evening forward.
Right. Thank you. Next up, to talk about stress management, we have Anisha and Aryamaan. They're both co-founders of Existology. Anisha is a business and psychology student and is deeply passionate about mental health. She is the co-founder of Existology, an initiative to destigmatize mental health and start important conversations. Aryaman is a data science student with a keen interest in math, football, and mental health education. We're really thankful for your over to you.
It's great being here. Thank you for inviting us. Um, could I share my screen? Yeah. Anisha and I are going to talk about stress management today. We are third year university students, as you mentioned. As a disclaimer, rather, what we are presenting over here is from our education and from our experience working for Existology and also in our lives in general, and they're not professional opinions. And more than anything, what we want to do is have a conversation with our audience, as stress management is something really subjective, and every person has a different way of coping with stress. There are some identified practices which do work well with a lot of people, which we will be discussing. But what we want to do is hear from you, hear what stress situations you go through and how you deal with them, or how we can help you deal with them better. Anisha, is there anything you want to say before we start?
I hope what we discussed today can help you. And if at any time you feel like you want to add anything to this discussion, feel free to unmute yourselves or type it out in the chat box.
Yeah, we'll try to address everything that you have for us. All right, let's get started. Yeah, thank you for the introduction again. We are co-founders at Existology. A little bit about Existology before we start. I won't waste too much of your time with that. So we started as an Instagram page. That's what we aim to be in the beginning, but we've grown a lot since. And what we are trying to do with our initiatives and all our work is to destigmatize mental health, start conversations about it, and ultimately break stigma in society that exists in our country about mental health and mental illnesses. And we've taken a lot of initiatives, including education on social media. You can check out our page. We also conducted a webinar series that talked about a lot of issues that we feel were not spoken about enough. We are also working on other initiatives, so stay tuned. Follow us on Instagram, and I hope you like our content, and I hope you like the work we're doing. You can find us on our website, on WhatsApp, Facebook, all the socials. All right, let's get started with our discussion for today. Anisha, what do you want to take over?
Sure. So our workshop today is divided into 3 parts. So firstly, we're going to talk about stress, what it is, what causes it, and its effects. Second, we're going to talk about some coping strategies, including some good coping strategies, as well as some bad coping strategies that we unwillingly take part in our day-to-day lives. And lastly, we're going to practice some grounding exercises that can help us calm down and refocus on a stressful day. If we can go to, yeah. So firstly, we're going to talk about stress. So what is stress? Stress is a normal biological reaction to a potentially dangerous situation. When you encounter sudden stress, your brain floods with your body with chemicals and hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol. So not all stress is bad. It's actually healthy when it helps you avoid an accident, meet a tight deadline, or help you amid chaos. In a dangerous situation, stress signals the body to prepare to face a threat or flee to safety. In these situations, your pulse quickens, you breathe faster, your muscles tense, and your brain uses more oxygen and increases activity. All functions aimed at survival and in response to stress. In non-life-threatening situations, stress can motivate people, such as when they need to take a stress or interview for a tough new job, or how I was feeling before I entered this workshop, because I was so stressed to talk to all of you.
All right.
So if not all stress is bad, why is stress harmful? Stress is actually harmful when it comes to chronic stress, which is prolonged stress over a long period of time. So chronic stress can cause a multitude of different problems. So, oh, I'm sorry, give me a, yeah.
Something that is usually stress, especially is fight and fright. So sometimes what the reaction to stress is can be life-saving, can pump adrenaline into your body. But a lot of times what stress can do is, especially when it's constant and prolonged, what it can do is start affecting your daily routine and daily functioning, daily thinking, what you think about do before you do common simple tasks in a day. And that's when you need to take stress as a serious problem.
So another thing that we need to note is that coping with the impact of chronic stress can be very challenging, because when we have stress because of a certain situation, like me presenting right now, the stressor eventually goes away. After the workshop, this thing that was causing me stress will go away. However, with long-term stress, for example, when people face trouble at their job, or when they face other social situations, the cause of stress is more constant, and the body never receives a clear signal to return to normal functioning. So with chronic stress, the same life-saving reactions in the body can disturb the immune, digestive, cardiovascular, sleep, and reproductive systems. So if we go to the next slide, we can see that chronic stress actually causes a multitude of different problems, like chronic pain, insomnia, digestive problems, fatigue, and so much more.
So we like
Now, yeah.
Yeah, we like to hear from y'all as well. What are common stresses that a student or maybe a professional, since the stress levels among people between 20 and 40 are deemed to be really, really high, probably the highest that we see among age groups. But symptoms and the effects of these stressors aren't felt very often for a really long time. So what stressors do y'all experience, and what difficulties do y'all have coping with such stressors? If anyone would like to share about this.
So some of the stress that like you may face at work is actually is actually having the deliverables that you have, which you need to submit to your customer, like actually getting it done on time, maybe, or like getting the appropriate quality of work that's expected from you, and like you don't feel like okay you met the quality requirement.
Definitely. Work stress is something that is really common among all professionals in this world. What work stress does cause is um, effects that can affect other parts of your life. Someone undergoing work stress often resorts to using substance like drugs or smoking, which causes long-term effects to relieve their stress, and which in turn, in fact, can be more harmful to their stressors than normal. Are there any other types of stressors that people experience? All right, something that I face in my life is a stress related to academics, which I feel we all have, but it's slightly different. I feel an inferiority complex very often that I'm not good enough compared to my classmates, compared to my, yeah, exactly. Stress for exams is something I see in the chat. Not being able to cope up with my other fellow classmates or people from other institutes in the job market for internships, something very common for students like us. And very often it paralyzes me. I feel like I can't work even if I want to, or even if I sit down, it's like a block that I have that I can't focus. I can't do anything really. I can't function. And it very often causes me to shut down completely, and days go by, hours go by, and I don't know how to get out of it. But there are some really effective methods that I have been practicing over the last few years, I'd say, to probably not relieve myself of the stress, but understand how to manage it better. And that is what we're going to go into next. We're going to talk about coping with stress. So Anisha, what do you want to talk about, some coping strategies?
Sure. So if we go to the next slide, we can see that there are broadly 3 types of techniques that we can use to cope with stress. So let's go with them one by one. So the first strategy is an action-oriented strategy, which is used to take action to change a stressful situation. I'll give one example of that, which can be reorganizing your to-do list if you think it's causing you stress. Can you think of some other examples of action-oriented strategies?
So something as simple as reorganizing your schedule, or even just going out on a run before you get to your work to energize yourself, having a shower in the morning. Things like that are actions that you're taking to make yourself feel more comfortable in the situation you're in. Make yourself feel that it's going to be okay. I need to get through it. I need to do something. I need to be active to get into the flow of overcoming the situation and getting the task done. So would anyone like to share any action-oriented experiences that they've had, or something that they've done that has helped them and can help others as well?
Something like just like talking to people, like if you're not in the right frame of mind, maybe you can just talk to your friends, or like talk to your parents, talk to your sibling, ask them, or like tell them like I don't want to talk about work for some time. I just want to talk about anything but work, for example. Like just to deviate your mind off the topic for that little while, just so that when you actually do go back to it, you feel a little refreshed.
That's very interesting. What you've just described is a very good combination of all three, actually, because you take some action to meet up with your friend, to get on a Zoom call with them. You talk to them about what is causing you stress, which is emotion oriented, and then you accept the situation you're in and get back to work. So yes, you covered everything basically, but yes, you take an action, you get yourself to make a call, and that's very important. I see some other suggestions on the chat. The songs, yes, music can be an extremely good stress buster. Music therapy, in fact, is also a very upcoming field in mental health therapy. Cooking, baking, as has become very common during lockdown, is also has a lot of therapeutic properties. Dancing, all of these, watching a movie, things like that, to take your mind off things and to get yourself re-energized is an excellent way of going about things. Another interesting thing that I don't know if a lot of y'all engage in, but there's something called adult coloring books. Um, you basically, there are empty pages of very, very intricate designs, and you color them in. And the coloring process in itself, because you're following a method, it's like one of those videos where it's soothing to watch. It's very similar to that. You're taking an action to relieve yourself. Um, Yes, happy color art, mandala painting, exactly those ones. Really, really therapeutic. Yes, moving on, emotion oriented, Anisha.
So emotional oriented coping strategies basically help us look at the situation in a different way. For example, if you have a lot of things to do in a day and you're halfway through the day, you can either look ahead and see how you have a lot of things left to do, or you can look behind and see how much you've accomplished. So another thing that comes under emotional oriented strategies is talking to a friend. If you are facing a problem, you can talk to someone, you can let it out. You can let out how you're feeling. You can maybe journal. I found journaling to be a very effective coping strategy. So can you think of some emotional oriented activities that we can take part in? I do see some good ones that we've covered already.
Yeah, we had a therapist back in school who was very, very adamant uh, that we keep writing. So we start writing, and without any thought, you just start writing whatever's going on in your mind, and you keep writing until you're done with a page, with 2 pages, or if you're writing in your notes on your phone, you just keep writing. And 15 minutes in, you'll realize that things that were bothering you, that were inside you, that you were thinking about subliminally or subconsciously, start coming out, and you can experience those emotions, those feelings in a more real way. And then having to understand how to deal with those emotions can be a more convenient, or rather easy way of exploring what exactly your mind is thinking and what exactly is causing you stress. Is there anything else that anyone wants to share? All right. So acceptance-oriented coping strategies. Anisha, would you like to speak about that?
So acceptance-oriented coping strategies are used to deal with situations you know you can't control. For example, right now is exam season for a lot of students. So we know exams are coming. We know they are going to be stressful no matter what we do. Even if we prepare, they are a major stressor in our life. So what are the things we can do to cope with the stress? So we can inculcate some activities in our daily life that will make us mentally resilient to help cope with different things better. For example, we can try meditation, we can exercise regularly, we can start eating healthy or fix our sleeping schedule. So all of these things may not seem like a lot on a single day, but over a long period of time, they help us deal with stresses better.
So all of psychotherapy will eventually reach to a target of accepting a situation or a thought process that you've developed in your head and learning how to manage it better. That's the idealistic way of dealing with any mental stressor. Of course, it's not very easily attainable. Accepting a bad situation is hard to do. So people spend a lot of time and a lot of different methods of achieving that. But the best way of dealing with stress is to understand that this is a situation that you cannot control. There are a lot of external factors to it, and the best way is through to keep working to find out how you can manage the stress and let it affect you less and get work done, get what your job is done. Do we have any questions so far? Does anyone want to ask anything related to what we're talking about?
Nothing yet. As and when we get questions, I will update you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to a stress management plan. Anisha?
So we can talk about all of these coping strategies, but they don't help unless we know how to implement them. So now we're going to pause for about 5 to 7 minutes and think about all of these questions. So on the screen, you can see the first question is, what are some of the biggest stressors that are in your life right now? The second question that we have to think about is, do you currently face any symptoms of chronic stress? The third question is, what are the strategies that you currently use to cope with stress? And do you think that these are healthy coping strategies? And the last question that I'd like you to think about is, what strategies would you like to implement moving forward? So if we could all just take 5 minutes and maybe jot these points down somewhere or just think about them for a while.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes.
Like when you all say symptoms of stress, like it's different for everyone, correct? So how would you know like what exactly, like how can you identify like what are your own personal like symptoms of stress, or like is it that's something like I have a question about. Like how do you identify the symptoms of stress?
So some ways to identify the stressors in your life is to basically think back to maybe the past week. So was there any event before which you had trouble sleeping? Were you particularly anxious on some day before a certain event? Was there some days where you were uneasy? And you see if there's a pattern. If you have big meetings and the day before you're always feeling a certain way and you don't know why, then you observe the pattern and then you can figure out what are the things that are causing you stress. So a good way to identify that is to start journaling as well. So you can identify these patterns because it's often very hard to remember how you were feeling on a certain day.
Yes, so journaling exactly is a very good way of keeping in touch with yourself, realizing what is causing you happiness and what is causing you stress or bad feelings. Uh, and a way of identifying stress symptoms is not during the situation where you're stressed out. That can be very difficult to do, but in reviewing what you have done. So sitting at night for 5 minutes, going over everything you've done in the day in a calm room, just with yourself, with your thoughts, in a relaxed way, you can try to identify what made you happy, what you like doing, and you can do more of that. Or you can identify what you didn't like doing, what was causing you distress, and how you can address that. Chronic stress is prolonged stress that can continue affecting you in a dire way over a long period of time, more than 2 weeks sometimes. Question?
Yeah, hi. My question is, normally when you feel like you're quite stressed about life, you tend to lash out on those in and around you very easily. Like, you know, if it's something as simple as something's not happening your way, you're going to scream at your mom and be like, why it's not happening my way, and why you're not doing this. So how do you deal with that?
Yes. So when a human undergoes a stressful situation, they want to release for their stress. They want to get it out of their system in a way, and unproductive way, or rather not constructive way of doing it is, which happens, of course, is the people around you by yelling at them, screaming at them, and so on. While these do happen and sometimes cannot be avoided, it's good to examine why they're happening, and other ways that you can replace, rather than, if you're feeling like I'm gonna snap at my mom today, she's being really annoying and I don't want to do what she's saying, and I'm already going through so much. So instead, what you can do is you can write down. You can write down all that you would have said to your mom, and then crumple it up, throw it. You can punch a pillow, things like that, which seem very childish and common, but actually really do work. Another something that really helps me is I sit at the window. I lock my room. I sit at the window and I look at every person crossing the road. I examine them. I look at what their lives would be like, and it's sort of humbling in a way. And then I realized that, okay, everyone has stress in their lives. Everyone is going through something, and my task, or what I have to do, is get through it for the people around me who are supporting me, and not take it out on them. They are being supported of me, so to understand how they're trying to support me. There was a very good example someone put in the chat. Living up to expectations as a stressor, overeating and lashing out. Overeating is a really complex topic. Eating disorders, while can be related to stress, aren't the only factor that cause it. Um, Coping strategies is speaking to someone really close to you. Ranting, yes, exactly. To get it out of your system, do anything to get it out of the negative energy out of your body. Meditation is something that people follow as well. And new strategies is incorporate breathing exercises to calm yourself more. Yes, that's spot on. Breathing exercises. Breathing is very closely linked to your mental well-being. When your breathing is stable, your heart rate is stable, you feel calmer. And so training your body to calm itself down by breathing in a good way, in a stable way, can be really helpful to deal with stressful situations. Are there any other?
I would like to ask a follow-up question to what Janisha asked. She spoke about dealing with parents and whatnot. My question is, how do you, like, what might be stressful for me might not be stressful for you, or stuff like that. Especially with parents and family, it might become a little more problematic. So how do you justify what stresses you to a third person, or like to a second person?
All right. So yes, that is true. Stress is very subjective. What causes stress to you might not to someone else, and someone else might not understand why a situation is causing you stress. But what you can do is, one, be respectful for someone else, understand what causes them stress, and then looking at it from your perspective, try to figure out what they can do to relieve the stress. And from the other end, when someone isn't understanding what is causing you stress, what you can do is try to explain it to them in a different way. Try to involve them more into causing it.
So another thing I'd like to add, that you never need to justify how you're feeling to anyone. How you're feeling is deeply personal. It's all about you. And if you do need to explain it to someone, you can say that this is what is causing me stress. And even if you're not sure why, you don't even need to justify it to yourself. You can try to analyze it. You can try to analyze the situation. But if you still don't figure it out, it's still valid. The way you're feeling is still valid.
Thank you. Aditya, you can. I think you can
I have
answer
a
the question.
question. Yeah. So basically, I find myself in this weird loop or a cycle of stress where I'm not coming out of it. Earlier, what my method was, if I was stressed at work or something, I'd go to the gym and just have my me time and lose all the stress. But now during the lockdown, work from home has become much more than it was before. So I'm stressed because of that. And then I end up eating. Then I become stressed because I'm putting on weight. So I don't see stress going away anywhere at a time like this. I don't have an outlet as such.
So a lot of people have lost their regular coping strategies during COVID, which is something that's been really hard on everyone because we spent a lot of time developing these coping strategies and now suddenly they're gone. So one thing you can try to understand is why going to the gym really helped you. Was it the physical exercise or was it the me time? And then you can find an alternative to that. For example, if it was the physical exercise, then you can start a new workout at home. And if it was the me time, then you can schedule some time for yourself every single day and take it as your new, don't take it as something that is negotiable. It's something that you do every day as a routine, like going to the gym. Aryamaan, would you like to add something?
Yeah, to add to that, a physical exercise is very closely linked to mental well-being, since any physical exercise releases dopamine in your brain, so you feel better, and it has the factor of motivation as well. Once you complete that last set or you crush that run, you have that feeling of that you've conquered something, that you've achieved something. 200 against Nariman. Motivator. So that is to find something that is challenging to you, something that you really want to do, especially if it's the physical part of it, the physical exercise part of it. So find something that is challenging to you and then really work to achieve it. And it can be completely unrelated to what you're doing in your life, in your career, but then achieving something for yourself that you want to do for yourself can really motivate you into dealing with other challenges in your life. There was also someone who mentioned, okay, it was exercising and playing football, yeah. So yes, the same thing. I play football a lot, and I didn't for a few months because of lockdown.
Hello. Hi,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Which isn't ideal, but the situation we are in, just a lot of things have changed in the last year where we've had to adapt to new situation and try to find new solutions to how we can cope with our stress situations. And I think we're doing a good job of that. All right, is that a question? Or if it was getting out of the house and now there's not an option, maybe you feel more stressed. Yes, definitely being confined to a space for such a long period of time is very stressful. The human brain needs to experience more than a single environment. So as far as possible right now, if you can go on a walk with all safety measures and things like that can, as of right now, be a quick fix to being cooped up.
Right. Can I just butt in here? We won't be able to cover everything if we still take questions. We can probably do questions at the end and.
All right. Definitely.
Right.
Okay. So moving on, I think. Yep. So a very useful and very simple technique to give you some instant relief when you're going through an intense, stressful situation is grounding exercises that bring you back to reality of sorts, or in a way, bring you back to earth. So something that you can do as an individual when you're undergoing a stressful situation, or if your friend, someone around you, a loved one, is going through a stressful situation, is to divert their attention. So a stressful attack, like a panic attack or an anxiety attack or any other stressful situation, you can thoughts and emotions you don't know which to focus on. And that the fact that there are so many is what is causing you stress, and it's constant. So to break that cycle, to get you out of that chain of not being able to focus on a single thing, very common thing to do is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, which is listing things down, things that are simple to do, so things that are around you. So 5 things you see around you, You just name them. You don't think about them. You look around you and you name them spontaneously. 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. So these are all of your senses. Each stabilize to think about normal things, think about things that feel and exist around you, and that can bring you to reality that these things exist. These are real, I'll be okay. Of course, this isn't a sure technique. It does not work for everyone, but it has proved to be very useful in situations where it just you're hyperventilating and you need just anxiety. Very technique that a lot of you already heard about is 7-8 breathing technique. It's very fall asleep for people who have issues with insomnia. But
I guess Aryaman's having some network issues.
Right. If you could take over, please.
Sure. Yeah. So we were talking about the 4-7-8 breathing technique. So it's a pretty simple technique and it's helped me countless times actually. So we could all try and do it together right now. So I can count for you. Okay, so we breathe in through our nose for a count of 4. Then we hold our breath for 7 seconds. And then we exhale loudly for a count of 8. So do follow along with me. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is definitely a breathing technique that helps you more the more you practice it. And you can try it for a couple of times every day and at night, and it'll help you fall asleep faster. And it'll help you feel calmer in stressful situations. Aryamaan, are you here?
yes. So yes, I think Anisha conducted a demonstration of it. But yeah, basically the exercise is a natural tranquilizer. It calms your senses instead of using an external drug or so on. And it does need practice. It's like a lot of people train themselves to lucid dream, to be able to lucid dream voluntarily. It's very similar to that. It's like training your body to feel the tranquilizing effect of your breathing on command whenever you want it. So it's something really useful that can help with any sort of anxiety, any sort of stress. A lot of other breathing exercises that you can follow you find on the internet that can be very, very useful in dealing with depression. And I think finally, we'd like to end with a quote by Steve Margoli. You must learn to let go, release the stress. You were never in control anyway. Which symbolizes that a lot of situations in our life that cause us stress, more often than not, aren't under your control to solve or fix instantly or instantaneously. And letting go of the emotion of stress rather than the situation of stress is, while a harder task to do, but is the ideal way to go about it, is how you can truly manage your stressful emotions. And yes, I think that's our time. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
I'm sorry. I think we can take questions now.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. I think Anandi has a follow-up question to what she asked earlier.
It was, or was it, or if it was getting out of the house, and now if that's not an option, maybe you feel more stressed. So I think we covered that briefly before we went on. So as Aryamaan said, try to go on walks if possible, or even if you go out on a drive, if you don't think walking is the safest option for you, that also really helps. So if anyone has any questions, or if you'd like to share a stressor that you have with the group, then maybe we could address it and talk about how we can go about things.
Right. If nobody else is, I'd like to ask a question myself. Like you rightly said, because of COVID, we deal with a lot of stress outlets. Like they aren't really there anymore. Like I personally also play a lot of football. I gym from time to time. But since all of that's gone, how do you suggest in a scenario like this? How would you look at finding other outlets that are similar and have the same effectiveness?
Yes, so that is a very difficult question that people have been trying to address for the last few months. But what has seemed to work is that since we are physically confined and can't move around as much as we could, um, the ideal way right now is to use technology. A stress buster very often is a social situation where you can talk to someone about your feelings, about what you're going through, and it can be a physical experience like going to the gym, exercising, playing football. So for the social part, there are outlets like Zoom or games like Among Us, and so on, that where you interact with people and you take your mind off things, uh, get a fresh start rate. Think about something that is causing you stress in a different way with a different outlet. About the physical part, that is slightly harder to do since because of lockdown measures and because of preventive measures. But a lot of people are conducting a lot of innovative ways of keeping you engaged. Like DanceWorks in India is conducting dance lessons online, music sessions online as well. A lot of sports academies are conducting gym sessions at home, just with calisthenics, that is your body weight. And so those are some ways that we can use right now, which might not be as effective as going on a run or going to play football with your friends, but can have a similar effect to some extent. And of course, we'll have to learn to be able to make the most of those as of right now.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for coming in, guys. I'm sure we all learned a lot. Yeah. Any closing comments you'd like to give?
Yeah, I
Thank you
hope,
so much for having us. Yeah.
yes, thank you for having us. I hope we could, our suggestions really could help you in some ways. Please do check us out, and we'd love to help in any other way possible.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks, Anisha. Thanks, Aryamaan.
Thank you.
Thank you.